All right. Do we have sound now? Do we have sound? Okay. Anyway, let me see. Who's monitoring on Facebook to see if we've got sound? And do we have sound? Okay. If we don't, I'll sing. We could have a sing along. Okay. All right. Yay. All right. So, starting from the beginning, welcome to Bring the Joy Back to Nursing. Bring the joy back to living. 5 keys to relief, renewal, and resilience in a post COVID world. And one of our pre seminar conversations was it's not post COVID yet. And here on the island of Hawaii, the numbers are going up significantly into triple digits, as a matter of fact. And the population here is not that big to be experiencing triple digits. So for many, it is not post COVID yet. And we're still wearing masks in public. But as the saying goes, this too shall pass. So my questions for you, and we've got slides that will come up at some point when we figure this out. But what I'd like to know is what's been happening in your world. And like I said, if you're on Facebook, give us a holler. Type it in there. And you who are here in person, what has happened? How has this whole COVID-19 impacted you? Okay. Yeah, there are people who want to come here and buy, and they have been buying from out of state, and now more want to come here, and there's no inventory. So, yes, and okay, so it's a lot of challenges there. Okay, what about someone else? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's the divisions, as someone shared, that are happening within our communities, within our families. It's breaking up marriages, friendships, church communities. Whether to get vaccinated, not vaccinated. I posted something. I happened to have gotten my second shot, and that was my choice. And I hashtagged COVID-19 vaccination, COVID-19. And my whole Facebook Live was about making choices and not allowing someone else to determine your reality. Because people were telling me how it was going to hurt and all, I was getting a lot. So my whole Facebook Live was about you have control, you have the power. And there were many attacks that came through. I attracted people, I guess, because of the hashtags that I put in there. So I went back and I took them out because people are very angry. So what else has been going on? What's come up? What stressors have come up? Challenges you might have faced? Anything? Any feelings that have come up for you? A lot of feelings. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. It was just shared is you don't know how somebody's going to respond. So and sometimes it comes too late. So I think feelings of frustration in those situations, does that resonate with anyone? Yeah.
I find though that if I still socialize with people who do not want to get vaccinated, they thank me for having an open mind.
Yeah.
That I care about them anyway,
Yeah.
and they know it.
Good. Yeah. Vince is sharing it. Just when we are talking to people, respecting someone else's viewpoint. Does that work? And some have difficulty because they need to be right. And that's always dangerous, if you have to be right, because I've yet to figure out truly what is right.
Well, I always remember the same old question: would you rather be happy or would you rather be right?
Yeah, would you rather be happy? Would you rather be right? I have one friend, there are two or three subjects we just never talk about, and we get along wonderfully. It works. So here is, I like this. How many Trekkies out there? Anybody Trekkie? You know what a Trekkie is? Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Yeah. Okay. And Tony's sitting there, what? So I love many of the Star Trek. So here, remember the Borg?
Yeah.
And resistance is futile. And the Borg were going to basically take over the universe. And they would assimilate different cultures and species and so on, and then they would partially automate them. And always, they would, if you fought them, and the star ship Enterprise always fought them. So the message from the Borg was resistance is futile. So resistance for anything. Because remember the saying, what you resist persists? So resistance for a closed down economy, resistance is futile. From being forced to remain in your homes when there was that shutdown, we're at least able to go out in public more often now. So in many ways, the Borg were correct. Resistance is futile. So what else can we do besides resist things that we don't like?
Acceptance.
You got my first key. Oh, that's right. You've got the handout. Okay. So I mentioned, the 5 keys to relief, renewal, and resilience. And your current Borg might be a justice system that seems insensitive, confusing, unwielding, or uncompromising. So do you resist? Sometimes you do. Or do you choose to go apart for a while? Remember in the Bible, Jesus would often go apart for a while, both physically and emotionally. And for us, it's an opportunity to look within at who and what we truly are. Okay? And when I say who and what you truly are, I'm addressing all aspects of your life. So what would it be like to embrace everything that's going on in your life? Just embrace it. Make friends with it. One of my favorite images is, if I were to imagine all the things that were challenging to me, I would put them in the form of a fire-breathing dragon. And the image I bring to mind is the fire-breathing dragon and I are sitting on the curb, and we're just chatting, and we're finding out what we have in common. And we're making friends. So when something comes up in my mind, it's like, okay, where's my fire-breathing dragon? Where can we sit and have a conversation? So that's very often, right, the conversation within. Remember the Chinese symbol for crisis? That it includes the characters for both danger and opportunity. And that's what's we've been happening in the last year and a half. We've had a lot of dangers, a lot of challenges, and many opportunities. Oh, okay. Okay, I love resilience. So they don't get to see them though.
No,
But,
they'll see it online, but they won't see it here.
but you won't see it here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. All is well. They're wonderful slides. I'll pass them around later. How's that? All right, so. Okay. And if you do, I think someone's pulling it up here. Put it on mute so that we don't have a reverb with the sound if you're looking at it here. All right. So the first thing we're going to look at. You got to mute? Okay. I'm listening to myself afterward. Okay, so the first key to thriving. And do you agree that it's times of complexity and change right now? So the first key to thriving is acceptance. And I know when I say that to people very often, they're saying, well, what do you mean? Does that mean I have to approve of it? You know, is acceptance the same as approval? I'm not saying that at all. But just accepting what is. So if we look at the Borg, you know, let's call the Borg any unpleasant feelings and experiences you might be having. And our initial response might be to fight it or suppress it. If we can go into a space of acceptance, you know, it's simply acknowledging that it's happening in our world, in our lives, and being peaceful with it as best you can. You know, so this includes your own behavior and beliefs. Those of other people, and those of the community, of the governments. So acceptance is about being Teflon so that all those stressors, they simply slide off. Does that work for you? Just be, you know, accepting. Yeah, okay, this is what life is like. You know, if there's pain in your body, just accept, okay, something's hurting. You know, so many things that are happening in our lives are happening to help us figure out what we can heal. So in your workbooks, and again, or the handouts rather, there is a space for you to start looking at, you know, what your current stressors are. So that's on page 2. What are your current stressors? So let's take like 3 minutes, 5 minutes most. Let's look at, you know, what really, go within, what is stressful for you right now? And fill in the blank. And if you don't happen to have the handout, doesn't matter, just take out a piece of paper. And start writing, what are your stressors? What is happening in your life right now that you're resisting or that's causing you stress and discomfort? And just quickly journal it. And we need pens. Does everybody have something? You borrowed one? Oh, here. I forgot to ask that. So for the slides, it's just the one that says, what is your stressors? Whatever. It's not the chart yet. Yeah, because we're doing this is just free flow. And I want you to throw up everything. Do not be proper unity, new thought, okay? Just throw it up. Hmm? Yeah. Oh. Okay. How you doing? So I think the tech crew here would be writing down stressors. High on the list is technology right now.
Apologize. Sorry.
You know, there's nothing to be sorry about. Okay. So now that you've listed your stressors, let's look at how you feel when you have these experiences. You know, all of you who have a handout, now you can pull it up. The, oh, thank you for moving there. We're having so much fun. And I hope you can participate. So Diana is doing this Herculean effort over here to keep everything on track. So thank you, Diana. And thank you, Jim, Uncle Jim. All right, so now that you've put down the stressors and the chart that you have, ask what are your stressors. So I invite you to look down what you wrote, you know, just kind of free flow wrote, and start putting the ones that have the most energy for you, as in negative energy. And next to each one, say, how do you feel when you think about that stressor? All right, so here again, just the feelings that you have. And the example I gave is my financial well being was hurt by COVID. So, how do you feel when you remember that stressor? You know, it might be I get scared and angry and feel powerless. I hate it. That might be how you feel. So, let's just do the first two columns right now. So, you know, the stressors that have the most oomph for you, and then how you feel about it. What feelings come up? And remember, this is about just throwing up, getting it down. And forget about the third column for the moment. Just get the first and second. Okay, I think most of you have at least two down, maybe more. Would anybody be willing to share what came up? We haven't heard from any of the ladies yet. Yes, Mary. Okay, yeah, the fires that are happening up north and the feeling, you know, could I've prepared better? And it's scary. And will I have to evacuate? Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Okay. All right, so the stressor is COVID. Can you travel? Okay, a non-refundable ticket. So the feelings that are coming up? Okay. All right. Yeah, not wanting to have those feelings. And if you have the feelings, are you creating the experience? Yes, that's a great question. So, those feelings come up, and the ticket's not refundable. So what am I going to do about if I have to cancel? And these are things facing us right now. So what would be a more empowering thought as you look at your first two columns? There's the situation, the fire, the travel. We heard before. Just there aren't houses available. Coming on the market to be sold. So again, going back to the Borg, we've identified your Borgs. You are also going to be checking out Star Trek, I think, after this. But anyway, so what happens then? How can you substitute a more empowering thought? What is a more empowering thought? Okay, and even more sharing, nothing I can do about it, worrying won't help. What is a more empowering thought even than that? God's going to take care of me. Okay, yes. In my example about financial well-being being hurt by COVID, and then I get scared and angry and feel powerless, I hate it, then a more empowering thought might be, I may not like this situation. However, I recognize it's happening and I have choices. Okay. So in the case of, the fires that are happening, as you mentioned, well, actually, you tell me, what could be more empowering for you with regard to the fires? Maybe, will I have to evacuate, what's going to happen, et cetera? What might you substitute there? I'm a confident being. I'll know what to do when the time comes. Very good. Yes. And Miss Traveler.
Oh, she just started doing that. Okay, I got a mic right here. When you ask somebody to talk, ask somebody to talk. Here you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep. We can hear you now.
I should have called upon my faith and know that if it's right for me to go, I will go, and if it's not, there must be a reason. So I have to trust that that's what it is.
Okay. All right. So I heard you sneak in that word should. I should have faith. And then you were doing a self-correct, I think, that I have faith, right?
Yes.
Are you doing that? Yeah. Yeah, and I trust.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So part of it, it's a health challenge that you're concerned about then?
Well, yes.
Okay.
That too, but I'm concerned, will I be able to make the trip, Or should I make that choice to go on and just have faith that I am protected, my husband's protected, and everything's going to be all right?
Okay, yeah, yeah. So trust might be a good place. Faith and trust.
Faith and trust.
Okay, and yeah, and as far as the trust, everything is unfolding perfectly, perhaps.
Divine action is in effect.
Okay, very good. So what I'm inviting you to do with these exercises, and it ultimately comes down to what works best for you. Again, not any right or wrong. Just be careful not to should upon yourself. Have you ever been should on? Yeah, not a good feeling. However, to find that more empowering thought. so that when that feeling comes up, when the thought about the fires or travel or the real estate market, when those thoughts come up and the feelings then that are attached, quickly go to the more empowering thought. Because what is that going to do for you? Any ideas what that does? Makes you feel better. So what does it do to your energy? Do you find there's a shift in the energy? Huh? It should raise your energy, yeah. Let me introduce something. Huh? No, you're done. Okay, we have tech things going on in the background too. All right, I'm going to jump ahead. For those of you who have the handouts, I think it's appropriate to introduce this now, and I believe it's page 9. Ho'oponopono. And don't worry about the slides. They've got the handouts. I know you're ready to jump in there. Thank you, Diana. All right, have you heard of Ho'oponopono? Yeah. It's a Hawaiian healing modality, if you will. And it's a certain consciousness. And it allows you to clear negative energy and emotions, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. It allows you to make a shift so that the errors in thinking that are happening within, you can pivot and then bring forward, the more empowering energy, thought. I'm going to tell you a story briefly. I know this works. I learned this from Dr. Hugh Len. He travels the country, actually internationally, and teaches Ho'oponopono. And this is his take on the modality, by the way. He offers, actually it's down, I think, to one statement now, I love you. When I learned it from him initially, it was, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And it wasn't about somebody, oh gosh, they done me wrong. Because sometimes when I say, try, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you, people will say, well, I'm in the right. I said, no, it's not about what the other person did or apologizing to the other person. It's doing a healing. Because part of the premise of Ho'oponopono is that we are all connected. And when we do a healing for ourselves, we have done a healing for someone we will never meet probably, somewhere in a part of the world that we might never have heard of. But we have a universal consciousness that goes back to actually the evolution of humankind. And all of those hurts that have not been healed, they keep multiplying, and the more we suppress or deny, the stronger they get, right? Resistance is futile. So I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. So if you can't think of a more empowering thought for whatever's coming up for your stressors, just say those statements, or just say, I love you. But break the energy. And I had a congregant come to me. It's before I had studied this at all, but I had learned from another congregant who had studied with Dr. Hugh Lin. She taught me those 4 statements. And I didn't really understand what they meant, but it worked. It resonated with me. So I had someone come to me and very distraught. She and her daughter were having very difficult relationship, but she had a great relationship with her granddaughter. And her fear, her terror was that her daughter was going to cut off the communication with the granddaughter. I introduced these 4 statements to her. And she gave me the argument, what do you mean? It's my daughter, and all of that. And I said, don't worry about it. Don't even try to understand it. Just keep saying it every time you have that stress come up. Go to, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. She wrote them down. I didn't see her for a month, and I was wondering what was happening to her, and she was relatively new, so I didn't have her contact information to reach out. She showed up in my office a month later, She had gone from Las Vegas to the Pacific Ocean to California to rejuvenate. But she walked in and she sat down. She said, "You saved my life," which is always an interesting thing to hear from someone. And I said, "Well, tell me more." She had used that as a mantra, driving all the way to California, the 4.5 hour drive. While she was there, every time the thought came up about her daughter, she went into that mantra all the way back. When she came back, she was far more peaceful. Within 6 months, she and her daughter were on a pretty decent relation. You know, they had healed a lot. And within a year, they were best buddies. And all she did was, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you." So that's part of acceptance. So let's go to the affirmation for acceptance. So for those of you with the handout, well, actually, all of the affirmations are on page 10. So let's go there. So we're going to move around, obviously, through your handout. So acceptance. Let's say this together. I accept my life and feelings. I have the power to create a greater life now. Okay, so I accept my life and feelings. I mean, they're there. Why not accept them? So it's just, okay, they're there. And then I have the power to create a greater life now. You have the power. All right, let's take a 5-minute break. There's 4 more keys, but I think we can move forward. Actually, if you stay the extra 15 minutes that we lost because of technical, that would be great. But we'll move a little bit more quickly. But I wanted to lay a foundation. So 5 minutes. So come back at 1 o'clock, Hawaiian Standard Time. All right. Cool.
going though, for some reason. She's not going.
Won't play it.
It was, but it's not doing anything.
Right there where it says Ho'oponopono.
Play. Hit play.
Play.
Okay, we're ready.
Are you living in a world that seems so unforgiving? Living a life that feels so unfulfilling. If they're feeling like they just wanna get away, there is an answer to the madness in old Hawaiian way. You got the Ho'oponopono day and night. Ho'oponopono gonna make things right. Let a little love into your heart. You got the Ho'oponopono throughout the day. Ho'oponopono the Hawaiian way. Love and forgiveness is a start. You got to open up your heart. Let a little love in. It'll put a big smile on your face. You got to open up your heart. Let a little love in.
Well, I guess I better get up there, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we're back. All right, so that was acceptance. And the original intention, so for those of you who are watching virtually, our apologizes, yeah, our apologies that we cannot interact with you more easily because we were going to be monitoring on Facebook so that you can type in your comments. A couple of things let me mention right now. Actually, I'll mention three things. One is at the end, there'll be up a slide. I love my languaging today. Isn't it wonderful? I'm a well-educated person here. But I'll have my contact information up, which is very simply Sophia at embracinggreatness.com. But that will be on the final slide. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on what we're covering today, and I'll follow up with you. And I think maybe, in the subject line, put workshop, and then I'll know, I want to talk to this person. So that's number one. Number two, this is a free event. Unity usually offers things at no charge, and then invites you to offer a love offering to the community. And I am giving this workshop as a fundraiser for Unity of Kona. All right, so anything that you contribute will go straight to Unity of Kona. So I encourage you, whether you're here or watching, and it's just go to their website and there's a donate and everything will be easy. I'm using it now.
Thank you.
You're welcome, yes. And the other thing, one of the things I forgot this morning, and I'll mention it now, but I brought some of my books. I do not want to take any of them back with me. I'm doing carry-on. Do not let me buy things here and not, and to fill in the spaces. So, Embracing Greatness, a guide for living the life you love. And I will bring them next week. I will remember to bring them next week so that we can sell them, and then again, it'll benefit Unity of Kona. Or you can go online. And if you look me up, Sophia Falke, you'll find it, or Embracing Greatness, a guide for living the life you love. Talk about how amazing you are and how great you are, okay? So that's that. All right. So next key is allowance. And I like the slide of the little boy. Can you pull that up? Now, do you remember when you were a child? Maybe you didn't get an allowance. I got an allowance. I had to work for it, but I got an allowance. Anybody else get an allowance as a kid? Yeah. No? Yeah, you did. Okay. Did you ever turn it down? No. No. It's like, yeah, can I have a raise? Right? I'll tell you, this will show my age maybe, but it's kind of obvious what my age is. Anyway, my brother and sister, who are 4 and 5 years older than I, they got 50 cents a week. But because of my age, I got 25 cents. I didn't do any less work, but I got 25 cents. And I took it gladly. And I saved it. So I was always an allowance and open to receiving. Now, how great was that feeling that you had, when you received that? It was joyful, and you started visioning what you could do with that money, whether it was a popsicle or candy bar that week, or if you're going to save it up for, your pony or your motorcycle, whatever. But we get, as we grow older, have you noticed that many are not as able to receive, to be an allowance for all the good that is there to come to you? Have you noticed that? Since I've been here, Uncle Jim here has, taken me and Mamie on a tour of the island yesterday and introduced me to one of the beaches and, drove me through town, picked me up at the airport. And it's interesting for me because I'm used to helping other people. And so to be an allowance in that situation and just receive, and then allow someone else also the joy of giving. But what happens to us? We have common beliefs that come up. One, and I think these are on the slides. One is, let me see, it's better to give than to receive. Have you heard that one? Yeah. It's selfish to want or expect too much in life. Have you had that one? How about, if I have a lot, that means someone else will have less? Ever have competition like that? My mother told me that at one point, because there are 3 of us, and it was pie or something, or cake that she was serving, and the argument came up. And of course, I was the perfect child, so I didn't get involved in this. But it's like, whose piece was bigger? So my mother got out the scale because she got tired of listening to it. So it was all equal because, if you get more, then I get less kind of thinking, right? So we gradually turn off the receive muscle. I mean, have you seen yourself do that? Or am I the only one that started to do that? I used to try to give my mother presents at Mother's Day and her birthday and Christmas, that sort of thing. And she goes, "Oh, no, Dolly, that's okay. It's just enough that I have you." And true as that might be, I wanted to be able to give something to her. And finally I said, Ma, how do you feel when you give me something? Give me a gift. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, does it feel good? Or are you just doing it because you have to? She goes, well, no, I do it because I love you. It feels good. I said, well, Ma, why are you denying me that same feeling? And that was the year she stopped arguing with me. And she would start telling me what she might like for a particular, event. So basically, we have a choice when we are in an allowance. And if you want to bring up the next slides, so being an allowance requires that you make a choice. What do you choose? What do you choose when you're being an allowance? Or are you still blocking it? So what we want to do in being an allowance is really getting into being in an active position. So it might sound like, well, if I'm in an allowance, I'm just receiving. But no, it's an action. To allow something is an action. You have to make that choice. So ask yourself, what would you love? Let me see. I'm not sure if I have this in your handout. I have too many papers up here. I need an executive desk up here. Yes, okay. And in your handout on page 4, I ask you, what would you love? I'm going to ask you this question again later, but we're going to get a start on it now. What would you love? And we're identifying 4 areas of your life. One is your relationships. When you think about it, everything is relationship, whether it's your business, whether it's your family, whether it's your community, whether it's your government, your church. Everything is relationship. With yourself, it's relationship. So what would you love in your relationships? How about career, vocation, or creative expression? I know one woman, she is an international speaker. She's well known. She has written multiple books. She does, these books that bring together several authors. She's a publisher. And even with all of this fame, and she's an editor, she just seems to do it all. And about 10 years ago, 5 years ago? 5 years ago, she decided to take up painting. And she's sold her paintings, so when you buy, you can buy her reprints. You might not know it's her, but, she figured out how to leverage that. She is being shown in one of the casinos now, because actually the casinos have art museums in Las Vegas, some of them. And she has excelled so in this new endeavor. So even though she was already successful in her career, there was a creative expression that was waiting to spring forth. So look at, where in your life, to express yourself most creatively, whether it's your work, whether it's something with art or music, your vocation, your health. And for me, health is physical, mental, and spiritual health. I lump them all together, because if you're lacking in one, it's going to impact the other 2 or 3, all right? And then time, money, and location freedom. So we have a visitor here from the Bay Area today in the sanctuary, and she's looking for location freedom also, among other things, right? Yeah, and for me that's important, and many people that's important. Can I live where I want to live? And do I have the time and the money to make that happen? So it's getting yourself into the mindset of, I have all the time, all the money, to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. Okay, so on page 5, you have an exercise. And if you do not have this handout, we have 3 columns. The first column is what would I love? And having been, seeing the 4 main areas, try to, get at least one from each area. And then what limiting beliefs are blocking me? And here again, what's a more empowering thought? Because there's always, that mental mischief that comes up. And if we don't address the mental mischief, it becomes mental mayhem. So an example, I want to be financially prosperous. That might be what I would love. What limiting beliefs are blocking me? The economy is awful and there's nothing I can do to fix things. What's a more empowering belief or thought? I have all the resources necessary to be prosperous. God is my source in all things. So let's take a few minutes now. What would you love? And let's take one from each of the areas. Just jot it down in shorthand for yourself. Then your limiting belief and your empowering thought. How's it going for you? And by the way, for the 6 people I understand are online, welcome. It's good, so good to almost see you. We're glad you're here. Now, this is a place not to overthink it. I have someone who did a challenge, and I initially took the challenge, and I'm still working on it a year later. And that was 300 things that you want to do before you die kind of list. It's like 300. You want me to think of 300 things? But this is to prime the pump, and some of you know what that means. I mean, years ago, when you pulled up well water, there was a pump that you used, and you needed to put a little bit of water into the pump to prime it so that you could pull the water up from the well. All right, so that's what we're doing here. We're priming the pump. So we're getting some of those ideas down so that when you leave here, again, this was going, remember, it was going to be a 3-hour workshop so that you could really dive deeply. So my invitation is that you do dive deeply to see what keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up, because this is an ongoing process. This isn't, oh, I came to a workshop and I'm going to walk out transformed. No, this is an ongoing process. So did anything come up for you as you were looking at what I love? Anybody? Anything? You're going to get your microphone. Yay.
Okay. I was aware of that pump you were talking about. I did that when I was a child.
Yes.
I had something come up for me, but no answers. What I would really love is to be free of my arthritic pain in my knees. That's the main thing that I
Okay.
would really love.
Okay.
But then when I looked over here, what limiting beliefs are blocking me, well, that's something I really want. So I don't, and I'm doing things which doctors say I should, exercise and physical therapists, exercise, and
Okay.
diet.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
that couldn't be blocking me. And what's a more empowering belief or thought? Maybe you could help me with that.
Okay, let me go back to what might be blocking. Do you believe that any of these things are going to work in alleviating your pain? Do you truly believe they're going to work?
Do I believe what's going?
That all these things that you're doing, the exercise, the eating, and so on, do you believe that they will alleviate your pain?
Well, I was hoping.
In your heart of hearts, do you believe that it will alleviate your pain?
Well, I don't know about when my pain went away, then I could say I
Okay.
believe that physical therapy relieves the pain. But under the circumstances, the proof is in the pudding.
All right, so what would it be like is, so perhaps you're not truly believing they're going to work because they haven't worked up until now.
Now, correct.
All right. One of my favorite phrases from, when I'm coaching people and they'll say, well, oh, it's this way, it's all that way, and there's nothing I can do. Then as we reframe it, well, up until now.
Oh, okay.
So up until now, what you've been doing has not been working.
Correct.
However, as I move forward, I'm experiencing less and less pain. Would that be a different way of thinking?
Well, that's a way of thinking, but that's not the
Or
truth.
there you go. There you go. Do you see, if it's not the truth, then that's limiting belief.
Well, what shall I believe in?
Well, how about, up until now, what I've done hasn't worked.
Up until now, that hasn't worked all the way. It's not a 24-hour pain.
Okay.
But it's there.
Okay.
I'd like for it to be eliminated totally.
I got it. I'm with you, sister. Yep. my sister, my own, my blood sister,
Yes.
she's good. Of all the
Yes.
things that she didn't want to inherit from our mother was the arthritis pain throughout her body.
Yeah.
Okay, so my sister's dealing with everywhere, and I'm so grateful that I missed that one. So, but up until now, it hasn't worked. However, as I move forward, every day I experience less and less pain as a more empowering thought.
Okay.
Okay?
Every day.
All right. And it's to do that shift, to reset your belief system.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything come up? All right. So, yes, Vince.
5 months ago, I was in a pretty serious car accident.
Uh huh.
I was sitting at a stoplight, and I had a fairly small car. The car got totaled, and I've got terrible whiplash.
Uh huh.
And I have to deal with that every day. But I found a new pain doctor who says that he knows of a specialist that can inject something into my neck and my shoulders and my back to relieve the pain. But I'm not so sure about that. So that's my limiting belief. But the empowering thought would be to trust my doctor and say that this will help me.
Okay. All right. That can be one. And also, what I would invite you to look at.
I'm actually kind of afraid of the treatment.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And actually, we can talk afterward. I have something to share with you. And I had terrible whiplash one time. And after a year, it still hadn't abated. And I was wondering if I'd ever be pain-free. And then slowly I would realize, oh, I didn't hurt for the last 5 minutes or whatever, because the pain would come back. And then I'd realize that I hadn't hurt. So so again, it might be, what we're doing with Mamie, to up until now, and just again, every day in every way. And I'm not trying to give out platitudes, by the way, because I really don't like it when people platitude me. Yeah. I want, because it's frustrating and it hurts and, listen to me. And yet, the truth is that as we keep working to reset our own belief about the pain, see, we are so powerful. You are so powerful. All right? I mean, to me, it's a miracle. Every time I cut myself or burn myself, and after I've taken care of the initial first aid, I watch with amazement as my body heals. And I love it because to me, it says, you're healthy. All right, so let's work, in those terms, to reset, because you don't have to have that experience. All right, and you're not a failure if you do. It's just that, just one day, or every day, the sweet small steps.
Well, I go to physical therapy, and that seems to help. But,
Okay.
But the effect rubs off within a couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We'll talk afterward. Okay. All right. So this is, again, being an allowance. This is just what's happening. And now to start to reset, this is what I would like instead. So we've got acceptance, allowance. They're closely related. And now let's, finish up on this key. And we have the affirmation. And for those of you with the handout, it's at the bottom of, where is it? Excuse me. Oh, it's not in your handout. Never mind. We need it up. Oh, it's on your last sheet. All of the affirmations on page. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong. Thank you. I'm looking at the slides. You don't have the slide thing. Yes, on page 10. Okay, so for allowance, let's say this affirmation together. I invite and allow all the goodness the universe has to offer into my life now. You notice how I like that word now? Not in the future, but now. So our next key, how are these doing? Are these making sense, these keys? Okay. How about you out there at home? And actually watching later. So the next key is appreciation, and this is one of my favorite keys because it is a very high vibration. And it activates the law of attraction. Just about every self-development, business development, and spiritual program I've ever encountered has as part of it gratitude or appreciation. It's not. It's not. You'd have to listen to me for the moment. Sorry. You don't have an exercise for this one. Yeah. Yeah. It is not in your handout. Thank you for reminding me to tell you that. That would be useful. Okay. So, who's ever kept a gratitude journal? Have you ever kept a gratitude? Yeah? Yeah, yeah. Why bother? Why should you do that? Keep a positive mind frame. Thank you, yes. And also to help reset any negative that might have come up during the day. You've heard of looking for the positive in the negative. You know, what can I be grateful for? Yeah, so if you know our bodies are in pain, is there something that we can be grateful for? You know, maybe thank you, body, for talking to me and telling me that there's something I need to address. Okay. Yeah, we just shared that pain is a message, you know, that there's something different to focus on, so to work through the pain. All right? So it's also powerful because, you know, again, raises your vibration. Appreciation and gratitude are of a high vibration. And what happens when you have a high vibration? Well, actually, any vibration. What are you doing? You are attracting more of the same, more that is on that vibratory level. So if you have a low vibratory level, if you're buying into, oh my goodness, this is never going to change, and you know, nobody knows the trouble I've seen, you know, kind of mentality, then you're going to attract more. I mean, just in a conversation, have you ever been in a conversation with someone and it's like, oh gosh, you know, there are three of us who did this. Oh, I stubbed my toe. I don't know what happened. I might lose my toenail. And oh no. And then the next one, a day later, said, oh, you think that's bad? You know what I did last night? And then the sharing of that experience. And then a day later, the third one. And I will admit I was in the group. So, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. There was a trail of blood, and you don't need all the details. But, you know, it was like, and, you know, so when I hurt my foot, I said, well, you know, if you think that's bad, and let me tell you. But then the first person shared all the details. I said, okay, you got it. But do you ever notice you go into the one-upmanship or one-up-womanship? When someone starts sharing, well, you think that's bad. You know, so we kind of get caught up in that. And when I started noticing that, that's something that at least I do, and perhaps you never do that, and because you're unity, and I know you're, you know, ascended and everything, but I do sometimes. And now that I'm aware that I can do that sort of thing, I'm able to stop it more quickly and I get quiet, and I just don't participate anymore, you know, or I'll even say, okay, we're done with this. I'm ready for a new conversation. And then, oh, okay. And then, you know, usually the people get it and they drop whatever we're starting to wallow in. So the gratitude and appreciation really does raise your vibration. And they might sound like they're the same, but there is a slight difference between gratitude and appreciation. Gratitude is more of an active participation in, you know, what you're receiving, and to really look for it. So it's an activity, more of an activity. Appreciation is more of a state of being. Does that make sense? So when you're in a state of appreciation, it's that wonderful light and openness and receiving. So what this third key is to be peaceful. Look to what more you can attract that would be of a higher vibration if something that's appeared negative happened. You know, again, looking for the good in something that might seem negative, and build upon that so that you can start attracting at the higher vibratory level. Okay, let me see. You know, underlying the state of appreciation is you know, it's for life itself, the joy of being alive, even with the aches and pains, even with the frustrations. But I'm breathing. It's one of the first things I think in the morning. Look at me, I'm breathing. So what you focus on, you attract. Okay. So the thing also is with gratitude is to focus on what you want, not on what you avoided. You know, so instead of being, oh, I'm so thankful I didn't get hit by the car, look at I'm grateful that I'm safe. That makes sense? Because it's a funny thing about the universe, it doesn't hear when we say don't. It only hears the noun or that, you know, that phrase. So hit by a car is what it's going to hear. So then that's what we're sending out the vibrations for. But if we say, so grateful that I'm safe, that's what the universe hears, and it's going to keep you safe. All right, so we don't have an exercise here for appreciation. We do have an invitation that moving forward, and as you go through these exercises, that you look for everything that you can be grateful for and bring yourself into that state of appreciation and joy, no matter what is occurring. Do you see how they're all tying together? You know, the acceptance, the allowance, the appreciation. So let's look at our, what are you grateful? Let's look at our affirmation. And again, let's go to page 10. So for appreciation, and together, I appreciate the fullness of life and all the good that rushes to me. Okay, notice that rushes to me. Are you ready for number 4? I love this one too. Authenticity. So authenticity is an invitation for you to be your authentic self in all things. During the lesson this morning, I mentioned Kathleen Quinlan's book, which I forget the name of now. I love myself. I bring it up. We will go on. Um, yeah. Okay. Never mind. But we have a higher self within us. That is our authentic self. We have that within us that calls us forth always to be the best that we can. I mean, have you ever tried to be someone else? Have you? Doesn't work very good. Yeah. Tried to be the person, your parent or your teacher or your employer or your spouse tells you should be. Yeah. Okay, I should be that person. Because the conversation sometimes. Well, I want to be loved, so I have to become this other thing. So here we're inviting you to become your authentic self. Because to try to be somebody else is thinking, oh, I'm not enough. Have you ever had that happen to you? I'm not enough? I have a colleague, she wrote a book, You Are More Than Enough. And it's true, you are more than enough. Going back to you, created in the image and likeness of God. How can you be anything less than enough? And the truth is, you are amazing. Talked about that this morning. You are amazing. So am I. So what about being true to your authentic self? What would that be like for you? What would it be like to shut off your brain to all the outside forces that want you to conform? What are some of them? You know what I mean. Turn on the TV. What do you get hit with? Negative, yeah. TV, the news. Mary Morrissey calls CNN continuously negative news. Other stations, I'm not going to mention them. But advertising, what I should look like, what I should think, what I should eat. And you ever compare yourself to the people that got air spray, whatever, they touch up the photos, so that, nobody looks like that. But that's what's on the magazine cover. That's what's in the articles. Social media. Wow. What a place to hide your inauthentic self. The people do hide out there, and they just lash out because they forget who they truly are. Government programs, education. You've probably been watching the news, hearing the news. I won't go into it because I don't do politics from, in a transformational program. But what you can and should teach or not teach. We were going through it with the vaccines, or to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. So you get the picture, right? Can you think of some time when you were asked to be other than your true, authentic self? Yeah. And how did that work out? Yeah. Okay. And what happens is, because your true authentic self is magnificent. And I've asked a few of you, that have had deep, abiding relationships. How did you meet, and how did that unfold? And I love the stories because you meet in such exceptional ways. You weren't going to go to an event, but you went anyway because your friends nagged you into it. And then you met someone you never would have met otherwise. You might have to go to another country and you meet someone on a tour that you would otherwise never have met. And maybe you live a mile from each other, but you would not have met in your hometown. So when you get to be your authentic self, you are open and inviting to some amazing things in your life. And again, it comes down to your vibration, or it comes up to your vibration. You start attracting other authentic selves who recognize themselves in you because you're both being authentic. Because you don't want to attract the people, do you, that are putting on a facade? You know, at the end of the day, who do you want to associate with? And if you truly get in touch with how magnificent you are, don't you want to hang out with more like you? Okay. So there are plenty of people who are deceitful, charming, cover things up. I don't want to be with those people. I want to be with someone who's authentic and genuine. So again, there's no exercise for this one. It sounds like there's a motorcycle over our heads, doesn't it, with whatever's going on outside? Okay, so this is simply an invitation to look at where you're being inauthentic. So like I said, I don't have an exercise for you today because the next exercise is just going to change your life, change mine. So I'm projecting on you. It'll have an impact on you. So the invitation is to be your authentic self and to start noticing. Because when you get in touch with that, it doesn't feel good, does it? When you go off course. So again, on your page 10 in your handout, your affirmation for authenticity. I celebrate and radiate the beauty of my authentic self. And here's the one that really comes down to brass tacks. We've been building up to this. This is the fifth key. And it is abundance. And I don't mean just money. I'm talking about abundance in every area of your life. We looked at those before. You know, your relationships, your time and money freedom, your creative expression, your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional well-being, health and well-being. All four areas. Where can you be abundant? And you got started on this. You know, I asked you to, put down what would you love and what limiting thoughts, and then what would be a more empowering thought. Are there any areas of your life right now where you're experiencing less than abundance? Any? Pain? Yep. Finances, perhaps? Anything else? Relationships, maybe? Yeah. So here, to build on this, because again, that authenticity, that, that gratitude and appreciation and just being an allowance and acceptance of what's going on in your life, and allowing the good, inviting the good because you're raising your vibration. So with abundance, let me see. There's a slide that, do you have the book slide? There's a book slide. I like this slide because I made it. So we talked about the abundance in relationships, mental, spiritual, and physical health, vitality, career and creative expression, time and money freedom. And now, think of your life as a book. And imagine that the right-hand page is your life up until this point. And imagine that this side is blank. So this is where you get to create the life that you would like to create for you and your loved ones. Okay, so up until now, this is where you've been. But now this is a blank page. The rest of the book is for you to write. And that's what you're going to start doing today. On your worksheets, I told you it was going to be interactive and you're going to work, didn't I? I think I said something about fun. I hope you're having some level of fun. Let me tell you a brief story. When I was getting my coaching certification, it was actually, I took a year off between ministries. I left Boston, I got rid of half of my things, put the rest in storage, packed up my car, and I hit the road for a year. I hit my 50th state. North Dakota was my 50th state to visit. I camped, I've stayed with friends, and I studied for my coaching certification. So I still remember I was in a campground in Iowa, and I was talking to my coach and one of the instructors. And he gave me the assignment. He said, okay, I want you to write a letter to yourself. It's got to be at least a page and a half, single-spaced. I want you to think 3 years out and write what your life is like in 3 years, as if it's already happened. I hadn't decided whether or not I was going to return to church ministry at the time. I was on a year's sabbatical, if you will. Unpaid, but sabbatical nonetheless. And I said, well, I can't possibly do that. And he said, well, why not? Well, Wayne, because I haven't decided yet what I want to do and next year, much less 3 years. So I really can't do this. Sophia, you have a choice. Okay, good. He said, yes, you can do the assignment and finish the program and get certified, or you cannot do the assignment and we will love you and bless you and send you on your way. I did the assignment. And I did it begrudgingly. So I looked at all four of the areas and I wrote the letter. Actually, it was write the letter to a trusted friend, you know, as if it's already happened. So I'm so happy and grateful now that now you notice that happy and grateful, you know, get the energy up. So I'm like, I'm so happy and grateful now that and I wrote it. And I sent it. And it sat in my computer. And I didn't look at it again. So about 2 years later, I happened to be going through my computer after I had accepted after I'd been minister at Unity Center in the Valley for a year or so, and after I'd bought my house, the house that was open and had, you know, light coming in and, you know, had this certain feel about it and the view that I had, and talking about the ministry because I figured, okay, I'll make it up because I didn't know what I wanted. And I looked at that, and having written that letter to myself as if it had already happened, so happy and grateful now that probably 2/3 of it had occurred without me ever doing a thing afterward, without thinking about it. And what happens is when you go through, when you go through this experience, because you will, and resistance is futile, so I'm going to be the Borg here. Writing this to yourself, or to a trusted friend, even better. I'm so happy and grateful now that and write where you see yourself in 3 years. that make sense to you? And to bring in the sense of, how does it feel? Bring in all of your senses. How does it feel? How does it smell, taste? I have to look them up. I always forget what they are. What are your senses? Huh? Emotion. Yeah. How does it feel? I'm so happy, that happened. So pulling all of that together, what does your home look like? What are your relationships? And do your kids really adore you and give you lavish presents? If you have children, I mean, what are your friends like? What is your church community like? If that's important to you, what is if you're still working, or maybe you want to be fully retired and have a lavish income. Not bare bones, but lavish. What would that be like? So in your worksheet, it starts on page 6, relationships. And just bounce between them, but I wanted to spell out so that you cover all of them. And look for, and if those limiting thoughts come up, just pretend you're writing a fantasy science fiction novel, okay? So let's take right now. I asked if you would stay another 15 minutes. So let's do 10 of this, and then we'll close it down. So get started. I'm so happy and grateful now that I. How you doing? So we've had 10 minutes to get started. What what's coming up for you? Anything? God's good, greatest good in all aspects of my life. So are you going into detail on that? Yes. And at the end of this, and thank you for bringing that up, Jim, we end this with this or something better. All right, and I forgot to put that in on your worksheet, so write it in, please. And I will add it to future worksheets. But this or something better. Because as Jim was sharing, and I don't know if you heard it at home, yeah, the microphone man forgot to use the mic.
I didn't use the mic. Yeah.
Anyway, it's truly amazing, and I don't want to overuse that word, and yet it's one of my favorite words. What God will do when we are accepting, allowing, appreciating, being our authentic selves, and then celebrating our abundance. 10 years before I was ordained, if you had told me I was going to become a Unity minister, I would have looked at you like you had two heads. I was not someone that people came up to and said, oh, you should be a minister. No, that didn't happen. And yet it was a definite calling. I just knew that that's what I needed to do after I came into Unity. And so think back in your life and times when, things have shifted and it's like, how did this happen? Yeah, and it's something that's wonderful. So if you look back and you'll see that much of what I've been talking about this afternoon has to do with following these 5 keys. The 5 keys to relief. Relief from the stress, relief from the angst of trying to be what you aren't, trying to make something happen that really isn't for you. Renewal. And when you turn it over and when you start getting clear on what it is you would truly love, then the universe knows how to respond to you. And you begin to commit. There's a quotation by W.H. Murray, and who went on a Himalayan expedition. And when he was first approached, he said, I don't have the money. And then a year later, he was approached again, join our expedition. And he said, no, I don't have the money. And so the leader said, well, what would it be like, if you committed? Do you think maybe it would happen for you, that the money would show up? So he put down the deposit, non-refundable, right? And all manner of unforeseen circumstances showed up for him so that he was able to go on that expedition. He committed because he got clear that that is what he would love. And resilience. The stress is always going to be there. So you notice I didn't talk about stress reduction. or freeing yourself from stress. It's always going to be there. But how are you going to respond to it? And do you see how more resilient you can be, that you will become like Teflon when you have these stressors, when you are clear on who you are, why you're here, and what is yours to do and what you would love. So again, on page 10, our affirmation. And this is one I used all the time when we did our offering at Unity Center in the Valley, where the last church I was minister. And I invited everyone at the end to stomp their foot on now. I said, I want to break this cement floor because we have such determination and commitment. So together, and I invite you to stomp your foot at the end, all right? So together, I live in an abundant universe, and I claim my good now. Got it?
Stepping on it.
Now. So that is our time together. And again, and I put up a new basket in the back of the room for you who are here for your offering, your love offering for this workshop. I affirm that it has been useful for you, helpful. Also, for those of you online, the usual donation through, the Unity's website and PayPal and all the other ways that we have here. Next week, I will bring my copies of my book for you if you are interested in purchasing it. And let me see, what else? Is there another announcement I need to make?
I have your information now posted.
Okay, very good.
anybody
And if you
needs
need to reach me, it's Sophia@embracinggreatness.com. And during our 10-minute exercise, I did post, saying thank you to all of you who are watching. And I will see you next week. Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you
Bless
very much,
you.
Reverend Sophia. Thank you for joining us for the workshop. Hui ho and aloha.